Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session on caring wholeheartedly for the world. My name is Michelle Levy, and I'm sending you greetings of aloha from the occupied territory of the Kanaka Maoli, the Hawaiian people, in the beautiful Kahe Ahupua'a on the island of Hawaii, from where we are speaking. And so happy to be here with you and to be part of World Unity Week.
Yes, we send greetings for the northern tip of the island of Hawaii and are honored to be here and to be able to share this exploration with you today of the profound interrelationships of mindfulness, empathy, compassion, and courage. Human resources that are extremely rare and precious and ever more important in today's world. As we begin, we're going to share our screen and share some images with you and kind of walk you through the journey here together. So here we go. Yes. It's wonderful. Okay, so invite you all just to take a moment to center yourselves and come fully present.
Mindful presence is the foundation for accessing the courage and the compassion, the deep, wholehearted caring that we need to truly live into, embody, and activate this awareness of unity that is already present in our world. We are one world. So let's take a few moments here just to arrive fully, connect with yourself deeply, connect with the world deeply, with everyone else who's part of this program today and beyond, just to connect with your breath, this precious resource of air that flows to us and through us and that we share with all living, breathing beings. And we'd also like to share, as we get started, a prayer from great Indian sage Shantideva, who lived in the 8th century. And this is a prayer that conveys the intention with which we are offering this session. And it's a favorite prayer of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who says he does this 100 times a day in different moments and circumstances. And as we share this beautiful prayer, this aspiration to be here with and for the world and for all living beings, we invite you, as you are arriving, to listen into your heart and to really refresh your intention for being here. What draws you to World Unity Week? What draws you to this session at this time?
And even if you're joining this, watching the video after the session has happened, just really clarify for yourself what drew you to click through for joining this session.
And just so you know, we are live on Facebook on Peace Weekend, and we'll be sharing over to World Unity Week's Facebook pages.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. And so the prayer from Shantideva goes like this. For as long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain, sentient beings who feel, until then may I too abide, may I remain, to dispel the misery, the suffering of the world.
Shantideva, who also wrote this text that is really a favorite of the Dalai Lama, says, how wonderful it would be when all beings experience each other as limbs on the one body of life.
And this is from the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. A bodhisattva being someone who loves beings, cares deeply about the world, and is committed to being here in service of the whole.
So as we begin, I'd invite you, just reach up, touch your heart, gently smile, and let it be as though you're brightening the light of your good-heartedness, your true-heartedness within the jewel of your heart. And can you envision yourself embedded within the larger body of life that so many of the world's great traditions spoke to? That sense that we're all part of the body of this larger intelligence. And can you envision that as you brighten this light of presence and of love within your own heart, that light flows forth and is reflected in the deepest, true-hearted, jeweled-hearted dimensions of all beings everywhere. And that by dedicating ourselves to awakening to greater peace, greater presence, greater love, that we can, in a sense, nudge or inspire, activate that deep, deep potential within all beings. We're living in a time of just so many enormous potentials yet to be realized, and so many crises breaking on the shores of our life with each day. The outlook for the future is one that is fairly dire. And it's a time for us really to learn how to listen deeply and respond with wisdom and love. And this quote from Einstein, where he says, the world that we've made as a result of our thinking that we've done thus far has created problems that we can't solve at the same level of thinking or the same level of consciousness that created them. If we are to survive and to thrive, we shall require a substantially new level of thinking, a deeper, higher level of consciousness, if you would, if humanity is to survive. Vilma Takar, who is one of our teachers, said that in this era, to become a spiritual inquirer without social consciousness is a luxury that we can ill afford. And to be a social activist without a deep scientific understanding of the inner workings of the mind is the worst of folly. Neither approach in isolation has had any success. So in this session, we'd like to explore more deeply, these workings of the mind. And to begin with, we'll put that in the context of what on earth is going on. These are called by many people VUCA times. This came initially from the U.S. Army War College, trying to describe the modern battlefield, and it's since been really picked up in many organizational transformation circles. It's the notion that the times that we're living in, the world that we're living in, is increasingly volatile, increasingly uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and if you like, you could add another A, absurd at times, as we see what's going on. How could it be this way? And it's likely that as the complexity of our lives and our world, the intensity of our lives and world continues to build, that this VUCA-ness is just going to increase. And we can either be tumbled around and pummeled by these waves of VUCA-ness and change and volatility and complexity, or we can learn to surf. We can learn to develop our capacities to be able to thrive in these times. Our scientific power, Martin Luther King said, has outrun our spiritual power. We have guided missiles and misguided men. Our hopes for creative living lies in our ability to reestablish the spiritual needs of our lives and personal character and social justice. And without this spiritual and moral awakening, we shall destroy ourselves in the misuse of our instruments. The UNESCO Charter reminds us that since wars begin in the minds of men, it's in the minds of men that we need to erect the ramparts of peace. So just for a moment, consider, how is it in times when you're disturbed, when you're angry, when you're confused, how do you move yourself back towards peace? What are the inner technologies, the inner moves you work with? We were watching an interview the other day in the Wisdom of Trauma series, and Gabor Mate asked a group of indigenous leaders, how do you keep from being angry all the time? It was a profound discussion. As one of our First Nations teachers, David Chethlahe Paladin, Dene, Navajo teacher, used to say, worrying is just praying backwards. Worrying is just praying backwards. How do we harness the creative energies of our hearts and minds to move towards greater peace?
And interestingly, in the Zulu language, the remedy for the, or at least a significant antidote for the VUCA-ness of these times, the word VUCA means to wake up in Zulu. So we have this dual meaning, this dual invitation, a choice before us here.
Yeah. And I'd like to invite the people that are joining us live, Madrid and Valerie, Becky, anybody else who's here. We'd love to see you and just have some visual contact with you. So if you're comfortable, just light up your videos.
And in the chat, you could let us know where you're calling in from. That would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. So in these VUCA times when we're called to wake up, there's this tension that we're experiencing, especially in our world today, between versions of the truth. There's the inconvenient truth and the reassuring lies and kind of alternative facts, which there aren't any. But to appreciate, it takes great courage to really show up and be present, keep our hearts and our minds open to what's going on, and not to lapse into cycles of denial and shutting down, absencing, blaming, othering, resorting to violence and self-destruction, which reflect our trauma, which reflect our lack of capacity to endure the nature of reality as it presents itself. This is a beautiful model, very useful model that Otto Scharmer and the folks at the Presencing Institute, Gaia Institute, have brought forth. And we've worked with this with hundreds of thousands of people around the world who've been a part of this learning community. The alternative is for us to really be present with a curious open mind, a compassionate open heart, a courageous open will to see clearly what's going on, to see clearly the nature of reality, to sense it as it is, to be fully present in our unknowing and our vulnerability and our openness for receiving guidance and inspiration from deep intuitive wisdom. And then coalescing that and prototyping that, moving forth to co-create and create solutions that evolve our world and our society rather than destroy it out of our denial and our ignorance and our blaming. To appreciate this whole trend in mindfulness, which has been such a growing movement. I remember back in the mid-70s when we first started practicing and studying mindfulness, so few people were aware of this. That mindfulness is not for the faint-hearted. Any kind of contemplative practice is not for the faint-hearted. It requires great courage. When we start to quiet our minds, to become fully present, to really show up, there's an enormous amount of challenges that we need to relate to and find ways to make our peace with and build harmony with. So to appreciate that it takes courage just to be present, to not withdraw, to not deny, to not shut down. One of our teachers' used to say, we know when we're close to the truth when we have tears in our eyes. And the example of Lobsang Tenzin comes to mind. Lobsang was a mountain yogi and pretty much permanent contemplative retreat for the benefit of all beings in the Himalayas above Dharamsala, Tibetan yogi. And at one point, Lobsang was invited to Harvard by Herbert Benson to be part of a research project. He was being interviewed at that time and being asked, describe to us your meditation practice. And Lobsang Tenzin said, I begin my meditation practice every day by deeply, deeply contemplating the vastness of the suffering of living beings. And contemplating that suffering until I move to tears. And once I move to tears, then I know that I'm ready to begin my formal practice for the day. So pause for a moment and just envision that and appreciate that in order to open his heart and mind to embrace the suffering in the world, he's not just doing that alone within the context of that tradition. he was held in the field of refuge. So for yourself for a moment, just envision yourself surrounded by everyone and everything that gives you strength, supported by the earth and everyone and everything that you draw strength from, everyone and everything that supports you. And envision breathing in that strength, holding Jesus's hand, holding the Buddha in your heart, reaching out to all of your teachers who are reaching out to their teachers and their teachers and their teachers, and envision yourself breathing in and gathering the wisdom, the love, the strength, the blessings of those lineages, of those spiritual ancestors, and radiating your love and your gratitude to them. And with that kind of support, that strength, that refuge, then having the capacity to then dedicate yourself to opening your heart, opening your mind, opening your eyes to embrace the vastness of the suffering of the world. Profound, profound practices that we all have the capacity to engage in.
And this quote from Joanna Macy, who is a great contemporary bodhisattva and a colleague, dear friend of ours. This is a dark time filled with suffering and uncertainty. Like living cells in a larger body, it is natural that we feel the trauma of our world. So don't be afraid of the anguish you feel, or the anger, or the fear, because these responses arise from the depth of your caring and the truth of your interconnectedness with all beings.
Let's go back to those slides there. Pardon the interruption. Yes. And Joanna continues, our sorrow is the other face of love, for we only mourn what we deeply care for. The sorrow, the grief, and rage you feel is a measure of your humanity and of your evolutionary maturity. As your heart breaks open, there will be room for the world to heal. So to appreciate, just the incredible suffering that's present in the world, the ignorance, the greed, the cruelty, the denial, and to let that touch our hearts, to empathically resonate with that, and to move towards engaged action and compassion, which we'll explore with you ever more deeply as we go deeper into this presentation. To appreciate, as Thomas Merton once said, the whole idea of compassion is based on a keen awareness and recognition of the profound interdependence of all living beings, that we're all part of one another, and we're all involved with each other in the most deep and intimate of ways. William James, who is the father of modern psychology, Western psychology, said, the greatest thing in all of education is to make our nervous system our ally instead of our enemy. To make our ally instead of our enemy. And these inner practices that we're exploring here can really help us to do that. Especially in times like this poem by Dina Mesker, there are those who are trying to set fire to the world. We are in danger, and there is no time not to love. But the problem is that so few people have had training in how to train and master their minds, how to understand the nature of their minds. And so we don't operate them very well. We can lapse into overwhelm, into confusion, into distraction, and suffer greatly. But we're living at a time where there's this global renaissance taking place of learning how to expand our windows of tolerance, how to learn inner skills that help us to be at ease in the kind of green safe zone here, where the nervous system is working well, we're in harmony and balance, we're able to be at peace and see clearly and respond in ways that keep us connected to other beings, without falling into hyper-arousal, to fear, rage, panic, anxiety, overwhelm, and without shutting down and just dissociating and checking out and just freezing like a deer in the headlights. These learning how to make our nervous system our ally is to learn ways and practices that help us to expand this window of tolerance, and how to become resilience to come out of our overwhelm and our shutdown back into harmony and balance again. There is a condition called alexithymia, which is when we're not able to really read our internal state of being and describe or express what we're feeling.
This actually comes from the Greek word, which means having no words, alexithymia, for feelings. And it's pronounced alexithymia.
And alexithymia is the precursor for most of the stress-related illnesses, most of the conditions that people chronically suffer from, is part of people not being able to tune into their bodies and listen to the whispers and not wait for the screams. So this practice of mindfulness is a beautiful, simple, profound chart that comes from the Family Med Department at University of Wisconsin. They had this sign in elevators and in the hallways when they were teaching a mindfulness program, inviting people frequently throughout the day, and you can do this while we describe it, to pause, to get present. Maybe just be mindful right now. You're breathing in, you're breathing out.
Feel your feet touching the ground, your seat supporting you.
Be mindful of whatever you see and you hear, whatever the thoughts and feelings are that are present within you. To pause, to get fully present, to embrace whatever energy and information is flowing and streaming through you in the moment, and then to proceed. And as you proceed, to carry that quality of mindful, awake, loving presence with you. The key to this is learning how to listen more deeply, to recognize the whispers and not wait for the screams. If you saw that alexithymia slide and you went, whoa, maybe I have alexithymia. One of the best ways to cure that, to remedy that, and we're speaking as former clinicians, both having run stress management and pain clinics in large medical centers, is to frequently throughout the day just pause and check in and name the feeling that's alive for you as you hang up from a phone call, as you end watching a YouTube video, as you read an email or a text. To name the feeling, to actually write it down or say the word that describes your feeling. And those feelings will be described in one word: happy, sad, glad, mad, grateful, confused,
Anxious,
whatever it may be.
relieved.
So learning how to listen and applying the discipline to learn how to listen deeply into the matrix of your body and mind is the key to all of these practices that we're describing.
The origin of this word that's become such a part of our language and our vocabulary these days, of mindfulness and mindful, be mindful, comes originally from a prayer in the Anglican liturgy, and it came to an Englishman named Rhys Davids back in the 1850s, who was translating ancient Buddhist texts from the Pali, and he came to the word sati, which is the word for awareness. But he was like, what is the best word for me to use to translate this? And he remembered this Anglican prayer that he'd grown up with, which has the line in it, to always be mindful of the needs of others. And he was like, yes, that's the quality, because we need to be present in order to be sensitive and attuned to see even what others are needing. So the very origins of this term mindfulness, which just seems to imply a mental state, is actually in the heart. And the two are really together in the deeper heart-mind is where mindfulness abides.
Thank you. And welcome, Carol Ann. Good to see you here. So mindfulness is really the key. Learning how to be fully, wholeheartedly present is the key to social attunement with other people, to come into empathic resonance and to respond out of a compassionate responsiveness. Dan Siegel, real pioneer in interpersonal neurobiology and child development, child psychology, offers this wonderful acronym of PART to describe the quality of presence that we're cultivating. So imagine yourself here, just with the people here whose names you maybe see on the screen, or with other people you may be listening to this with, and just come fully present. And as you're present, maybe just watching us on the recording of this or in this moment, as you're present, just see what it's like to tune into us as we're sitting here, as we're speaking, to attune and to come into resonance with the people you're with, the circumstances, or even the animals that you might be with at any given moment. And that through that presence and attunement and coming into resonance, to then just feel that there's a sense of safety, a sense of relaxing, a sense of opening into trust and well-being. In moments when emotions are really running high, we need to be seen by other beings. And if we're not seen, if we're not really held in their presence, if we don't feel felt by them, something gets ruptured. We don't feel safe. We don't feel trusting. The energy and information isn't flowing between us. But when we're able to then repair that rupture, we're able to come back from our distraction or our confusion and establish presence, to tune in to each other again, to come into resonance, to let the heart soften and open and sympathetic arousal in the nervous system to quiet down, then we're able to come back into the sense of trust and harmony and well-being and deep heartfelt connection. When we're fully present, then we're able to read what's going on in others because their state of being is reflected in our own nervous system. So in a sense, as we become present with others, we feel them within our own bodies and mind. And this image here of the brain shows the parts of the brain in red that light up when we're registering and in resonance with other people's suffering and pain. And the green areas here are the areas that light up when we're experiencing our own pain, our own suffering.
And we can see how close these are to each other.
And one of the most beautiful psychophysical measurements of empathy that I've ever heard of, I think I learned this back in the 70s when I was working in the lab, was that a really highly empathic person will be able to be so still, so quiet, so attentive in the presence of another living being, that the heartbeat of the other person will be reflected in the brain waves of the person who's listening, who's being wholeheartedly present. Just imagine that, being so quiet, so attentive, so still within yourself, that the pulse of your beloved's heartbeat or your child's heartbeat or your loved one's heartbeat would be reflected in the pulsations of your own brain, your own nervous system. So to understand the interplay here of mindfulness, empathy, and compassion, there's being fully present with others, and that's being mindful. There's also this kind of cognitive or metacognitive aspect of empathy, which is that we really are able to understand what people are thinking and take their perspective to heart, to appreciate that they're sad because something that they were hoping for didn't happen, or that they're frustrated because they can't get something to work, or whatever it may be, a kind of metacognition. And then there's this quality of empathic resonance where we really feel what other people are feeling at a kind of somatic and visceral level. And we can name that emotion that they're feeling because we feel a deep resonance with that in ourselves. And that's really the basis for empathy, for a sense of rapport. And then on the basis of that mindfulness, that kind of perspective and that empathic resonance, then what awakens within us just naturally and responsively is a quality of empathic concern and engagement to actually reach out and care for the well-being of others. And I think this picture, this beautiful painting from Alex Gray called The Boo Boo, of a mama tuning into the child with the tear dripping down its eyes there, looking into each other's eyes, really connecting, so captures the spirit of what we're saying here, this quality of mindfulness and presence, recognition, resonance, and compassionate response as the mama kisses the boo-boo. Yeah. So this is where we get into some interesting territory. There's this misnomer that people suffer from compassion fatigue. But that really doesn't match the research. What we're finding in the research is that it's not compassion fatigue that people suffer from, but it's empathy overload or empathy distress or empathic fatigue. So empathy is our capacity to share and resonate with the emotions and the state of other beings. And this is vital to our ability to establish healthy relationships.
And it is the foundation for compassion. So it's really important. However, if we're not monitoring and managing the level, the load of empathy that we're registering in our bodies, it can turn into this quality of empathic distress or overload and lead us to feel overwhelmed and helpless or depressed and burned out, in a sense of how empathy can become disabling rather than enabling of compassion. And actually the reaching out, the engagement of compassion can actually help to remedy that sense of helplessness and depression.
When we move to compassion, we actually flip out of the empathic resonance circuits that can totally overwhelm us if we're not renewing and restoring ourselves and taking care of ourselves. Moving into compassion, be it just to send a sweet emoji to someone you love who's having a hard time, or to bathe them in the light of your love or your metta, or to call them, or to reach out, or to engage, to do something out of care and out of compassion.
Even a prayer to send our love and our light to someone.
When we move to compassion, that breaks us out of the just quivering with the overwhelm of just the exhaustion, the fatigue, the concern, of being in empathic resonance. And it can actually restore us if we move towards compassion. I love this beautiful image here from Mara Friedman of just this, just tender touch of a woman to another woman's heart, or another woman's belly there. Just that sense of, I'm here for you, really reaching out in this beautiful way.
Compassion actually generates positive biochemistry, healing biochemistry that is nourishing and nurturing to ourselves as well as to those we are reaching out to with compassion.
And I encourage you, really, if you hear anybody ever say compassion fatigue, to just say, whoa, wait a minute, the science really has shown that it's not compassion fatigue, it's empathic fatigue. And that compassion is actually the remedy for that overwhelm. This beautiful quote from Archbishop Desmond Tutu in this beautiful picture with his playmate, the Dalai Lama. The compassion is not just feeling with somebody, but seeking to change the situation. Frequently people think compassion and love are merely sentimental. No, they're demanding. If you're going to be compassionate, prepare for action, prepare for engagement, reaching out. A beautiful archetype for this, Jesus is an embodiment of universal love. Kuan Yin, this wonderful image of Kuan Yin, or sometimes Chenrezi or Avalokiteshvara, as a male aspect of this archetype of universal compassion that has 11 heads that look throughout all the realms and dimensions of being, and has 1,000 arms, and in each of those arms, in the hands of those arms, In the hand, there's an eye of wisdom, a wide open eye of wisdom. So there's this sense of, from the true heart of universal compassion, infinite rays of compassionate action reach out into infinite realms of beings, to bring comfort, to bring protection, to bring care, to express compassion. And I think, if we could just envision ourselves as embodying this archetypal potential, and to just envision how many beings might we send our love to, how many beings might we support through our prayers, through our actions, through our activism, through our actions, and to just envision our capacity to grow and grow and grow and develop our capacity to be a source of boundless loving kindness and compassion for all beings. I just love this image for that. As we explore compassion, I think for many people, especially in our culture, self-compassion is a profound place to begin. And Kristen Neff, who has suffered greatly, she's the mother of a deeply autistic child, and has just been incredibly challenging. There's a movie, a documentary about them. I think it's called Horse Boy. Mm-hmm. It's very moving, and it really shows you where the self-compassion, where it came from, as you see her struggle with how to be the mom to this child. She developed this formula that's being so widely used around the world right now to teach us how to be compassionate to ourselves. And it's a 4-part formula. So in a moment where we're experiencing anxiety, suffering, physical pain, to be able to say to ourselves, this is a moment of suffering.
It's mindful self-monitoring and awareness, the recognition, and to name it.
And then to normalize that by saying to ourselves, and suffering is a part of life. Suffering is a natural part of life. I suffer, all living beings are subject to this, or are vulnerable to this. And then the third step, may I be kind to myself. To open our hearts to ourselves rather than blaming ourselves or judging ourselves. To reach up and touch our hearts and say, may I be kind to myself. And may I give myself the compassion that I need. If I'm hungry, to get some food. If I've been sitting too long, to go out and move, to be in nature, to call a friend. What does giving compassion to yourself look like at any given moment? And you could tune this into, this is a moment of frustration. This is a moment of sadness. This is a moment of rage. This is a moment of physical suffering. We can be specific with that. And then again, to normalize that, move towards caring for ourselves deeply. And the beauty of self-compassion is that it doesn't replace the negative feelings with positive ones. It generates new positive emotions of care, of compassion for ourselves. They're being generated to fill the space in which those other more negative feelings may arise. And to appreciate self-compassion strongly linked to positive emotions like happiness, satisfaction with our lives, optimism, enthusiasm, gratitude, inspiration, and well-being. The research shows that people that practice self-compassion, even for a couple of weeks, increase their sense of self-compassion for themselves and their compassion for others, are able to be more present and mindful and enhance the quality of their lives. And at the same time that decreases the amount of depression, anxiety, stress, and impacts of trauma that people experience in their lives as we learn how to open our hearts to ourselves. And back to this quote from Thomas Merton, that the whole idea of compassion is about this deep interdependence of our lives with the lives of all beings. Out of that recognition, as one of our teachers, Brother David Stendelross, says, ethics is how we behave when we decide that we belong together. From this recognition that we're part of the larger body of life together, that we belong together, then we will do less harm. We will do no harm, ahimsa, non-harming, nonviolence. We will be kind. If someone is hungry, we will feed them if we have food. If they need protection, we will step in to protect. It's just a sense of we're all in this dance together. Another practice that's quite profound is this just like me practice. And if you would, for this one, turn your video on so that you could see and be seen. If you're comfortable with that, that would be quite beautiful. And we'll just do this little practice together. Thank you, Peter and Fabiola, and Carol Ann. Thank you. We can just work with you guys as targets.
Okay, so just to get a feeling for this, choose someone, a real person that you can see here, and just from your heart to their heart, just holding them as a fellow human being, just like you, who wishes to be happy. And just pick one person at a time, and just kind of in this recognition of seeing that this person, just like me, wants to be healthy, wants to be safe. Just like me, this person has experienced suffering, physical, emotional, mental suffering in their life as well. Just like me, this person is learning about life, just like me. And just repeat the phrase or this feeling as you're looking at this other living human being.
Just like me, this person wants to find meaning in their life, to look back at the end of a day and feel some contentment, some happiness. Just like me, this person's probably suffered greatly through this COVID time of isolation and lack of contact, and really yearns to be seen and to be held in the gaze and the arms and the presence of other beings.
And then just allowing some wishes for well-being to arise within you as you gaze at this other person or someone in your heart mind, if you don't see another person, depending on where you are right now. Just wishing from your heart to their heart. I wish that this person may have the strength and the resources, the well-being, the social support to be able to navigate the difficulties of life with ease. I wish that this person be happy, be healthy, be safe. May this person feel loved.
May this being be at peace and find well-being in their lives.
Because this person is a fellow human being, just like me.
So just envision going out for a walk today or going to the market to shop with kind of adjusting your lenses instead of doing drive-by shootings of people with your judgments, to just regard people through these eyes of love, through these eyes of humanity, of just seeing people like, oh, just like me. This person wants to be happy, wants to be well, wants to thrive, to feel valued and cared for. We'd like to share another practice, and also to appreciate the practice of self-compassion, this practice of just like me, and this practice of Tonglen, which we're about to share. That these practices are being taught in the Stanford University C-Care program, the Compassion and Altruism Research and Education program. They're part of the core curriculum at Stanford for teaching people how to heal their trauma, how to develop greater strength and well-being through opening their hearts to compassion. And we'd like to share this practice of Tonglen, which is a beautiful practice. It comes from the Tibetan tradition, though the St. Francis prayer is a beautiful kind of harmonic of this within the Christian tradition. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is injury, let me sow pardon. Where there is fear, let me sow the seeds of trust. So just reaching up and touching your heart for a moment, gently smiling, finding the flow of your breath. Let the feel, maybe with a big let your heart open to just embrace the totality of all the waveforms of energy and information flowing to you and flowing through you. And as you breathe in, just envision that you can gather any little twinkles or sensations of suffering or pain, any doubts or fears or anxieties, and gather those like waves of compost into your true heart. And as you breathe out, just breathe out waves of light, comfort to yourself. If there's a place of inflammation, imagine you can breathe in the heat of that into your heart of hearts, into your true heart, and then breathe out and extend waves of coolness that flow back to wherever that inflammation came from.
And as you breathe in the suffering, it's not like you are holding it or breathing it in, storing it in you. You're breathing it in, and it's being dissolved and resolved and transformed into this energy of healing, of compassion.
Or you can breathe in turbulence, let it dissolve into your true heart, and breathe out peace. And as you practice in this way, to envision that as other beings come to mind who share the larger body of life with you, that as you breathe, you can breathe in and gather their anxiety, their pain, their fear, their turbulence into your true heart, where those energies are dissolved and resolved completely. And as you breathe out, that you can extend to them waves of light, waves of comfort, waves of peace, waves of love, compassion, that flow from your heart to their heart, to their body, from your body to their body, bathing them in the light of your loving kindness and compassion. So at each breath, we just gather, transform, and open our hearts, and then we radiate and extend the light of that loving kindness and compassion to anyone or everyone, individually or collectively, who comes to mind. This is a beautiful practice to do when you're watching or reading the news or listening to the news. When you think of someone who you're concerned about, or a group of beings whose circumstance touches your heart, the Tonglen practice actually gives you a way to engage.
Tonglen means taking and sending. Taking, allowing that energy to be transformed and resolved, and sending whatever would be the healing antidote for that particular quality or experience of suffering. So it requires mindfulness and deep listening, as well as a caring, open heart of compassion. And it develops all of these qualities.
So in the research, if you look at people who just here in this case, first notice the difference between these two brain scans. The little triangle at the top is the nose, and then there's the ears. And this is a composite brain scan of a group of people who were practicing compassion meditation for 1 week on the left-hand side. That's the controls.
The blue.
The blue. And then on the right, the meditators are long-term meditators who've meditated for 10,000 hours, 20, 30, up to 60,000 hours of practice. And they're practicing a meditation of non-referential compassion, of just opening their heart to extend loving kindness and compassion to all beings. And you can see that the nervous systems of these different groups of people are wired in completely different ways. And the lesson from this is to appreciate that as we practice these methods, these kinds of methods, gradually through neuroplasticity, neural circuits are formed that allow energy and information to flow through the nervous system in ways that become ever more powerful and ever more coherent, ever more integrated within the nervous system. And this is be sort of like turning a lump of coal into a diamond, or a incoherent light bulb into a laser beam. And to appreciate that even after 10 or 20 hours of practice of mindfulness, of loving kindness, of Tonglen, of self-compassion, that even after a short time of practice, we're actually making measurable changes in the ways our nervous system works. And that gradually, over time, that we can move towards states of greater peace, greater harmony, where we're able to come back into that green zone of the window of tolerance, of well-being, without lapsing into or getting lost in our anxieties and our fears and our rage and our self-delusion and self-deprecation, that we can move towards states of greater and greater wholeness and integration and coherence, and become a source of inspiration and blessings in the lives of everyone we meet along the way. In his historic address to the US Congress back in 1990, Václav Havel, who was president of the Czech Republic at that time, speaking to the US Congress, I wish he could come back today and share the same talk, said, "Without a global revolution in the sphere of human consciousness, nothing will change for the better in the sphere of our being as humans. And the catastrophe towards which the world is headed, be it ecological, social, demographic, or a general breakdown of civilization, will be unavoidable. The salvation of this human world, our capacity for world unity, lies nowhere else than in the human heart, in the human power to reflect, in human meekness, in human responsibility." Profound, profound piece of wisdom and advice. So as we begin to wrap this up, a reminder of the words of David Chetlahay Paladin, one of our teachers, that worrying is just praying backwards. Hopefully from today's session, you've really caught a glimpse of some of the ways that you might organize the creative energy of your mind in generative ways, in resilient ways, to be a force for good in the world. To appreciate there is no time now not to love. And how can we move back towards that and back to our true hearts again and again as we see the incredible injustice and suffering and danger in the world, and dedicate and devote ourselves to creating the alternatives and the positive solutions that are possible. So that as we come to this moment, we'd invite you, just pause for a moment and check in with yourself and just see what's alive and aglow and aflow within you in this moment. What feelings, what thoughts, what has had meaning for you in this session? What's alive within you now?
And just to create an opportunity here for some reflection or reflective meditation, to listen into these 5 rivers. This teaching, a tool really, it's a tracking tool that came to us from one of our teachers in the Basque tradition. The elders, the wisdom keepers of the Basque people, say that if you swim in these 5 rivers every day, I think for the Basque people it's actually 4, we added a 5th river, but if you swim in these rivers of challenge, inspiration, surprise, and being deeply moved or touched, and we've added the river of gratitude, if you swim in any or all of these rivers, your life will be nurtured and strengthened in healing ways, in helpful ways. So just to consider through in this presentation, this short session together, where were you challenged by anything that was offered, or inspired, or surprised by anything that came from us or from within yourself in hearing or seeing these different slides and practices, experiences? Where were you deeply moved or touched by any of the images or quotes? And where is your heart grateful at this time?
So consider these, and we'll just wrap up with the slides here in a moment, and then we'll open it for whatever dialogue or reflection that you might want to share.
We might have time for a couple of questions as well.
So let's close with this quote from Einstein. If you like, please read this with us. It kind of sums up the spirit of what we've been exploring here. He says, "A human being is a part of the whole called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space.
We experience ourselves, our thoughts and feelings as something separate from the rest. But this is only a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us.
Our task in life is to free ourselves from this prison by widening the circle of our compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in all of its beauty." So if you'd like to be in touch with us, here's our email, a couple of books that we've written that are easily available on the web. Yeah, you could take a screenshot of this if you like, or just search for Joel and Michelle Levy at wisdomatwork.com. Some resources with more practices and techniques to share. And then here's a couple of links you might also like to explore to just learn more about some of the methods and practices that we've been exploring today. To take a screenshot of this as well. So I'll stop the screen share here and would invite you to just share any reflections that you might have on any of the rivers that you swam in during this session, or just any questions that you might have, or reflections on what was meaningful for you from what we shared so far. So feel free to just unmute and let your voice be heard.
Or if you have a question you want to put in the chat, we can read it for you.
Comments?
Yes. My understanding, through my investigations and search after truth and so on and so forth. I mean, beautiful presentations which you showed. I'm very much in tune for what you're speaking about, My understanding that we are all spiritual beings, having a human experience, of course, And we've all been created rich. We are noble, but we're never told that we're noble by many people, And, you speak about the heart. It's putting into the heart pure deeds, pure thoughts. And the heart is like a mirror. And to cleanse it, you cleanse it with the burnish of love. So these are just some of my... Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate the brightness of your spirit. Thank you for sharing. Any other voices that may want to be heard, reflections to share?
You might want to unmute everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that.
Okay. Or people can just unmute if they're ready to speak, I think. Carol Ann, do you have anything to share?
I think some people don't know how to. Um, oh, it's like listening to the Three Bears again. It was just so comforting um, to hear it, to hear the Dharma, to hear the profound practices of compassion, um, which I fortunately am marinating in because of my kind teachers. And, the three of us were very fortunate to stumble onto this path early in our lives. Um, so I'm so grateful that you provided this opportunity for us to, um, yeah, stew in the juice. It's so wonderful.
Hmm. It's a joy to see you, Carol Ann. I really celebrate the 50 years or so we've been trying to fathom these profound practices. So, greetings to you from across the waters. Aloha from our island to yours.
So how many years have you been married? 35.
Close to 40.
Close to 40 now. So amazing.
I made their wedding cake.
Yes.
They're delicious and beautiful.
Yay. We've been in love together for a long time. Bless you, dear. If anyone else wants to speak, just you can unmute on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. We welcome your voices or reflections or questions or notes in the chat.
I appreciate the just like me. It just sounds so childlike and innocent. And I did it with you, Diana, just like me. And before I did that, you were just another one of the faces, like Hollywood Squares or something, just, and it was a deep honor to
Wow.
connect with you, Diana, and feel that just like me, especially the part about the suffering, that we all suffer so much.
Hmm.
And it's just part of being human. We're not failing because we suffer, right? It's just part of the package deal. But to have that compassion for ourselves and each other is the remedy, right? It doesn't stop the suffering. It's like, but at least we don't harden into the suffering then, right?
Hmm.
There's some spaciousness where we can connect.
Yeah. Isn't also suffering spiritual growth?
Hmm. Beautiful.
The
No,
part
I
that,
know that Diana is speaking, but I can't hear her.
excuse me, I may have a mute problem.
There
You're
you are.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. What were you
Okay.
saying?
I have a bit of a throat problem. I really appreciated the fact in that part of the program where you said acknowledge that you're in pain. Acknowledge this is what that's like, and then take care of yourself. That part of it just really resonated with me. It was quite understanding, be able to just really be able to, oh, this is it. Okay, this is what suffering is. It's okay to suffer. Now let's take care of me. And I thought that was quite good.
And that can bring us back to our wholeness again, and to appreciate our wholeness in that moment is on fire. It's sad, it's angry, it's in pain, whatever it is. But if we can hold that in our hearts, it's a movement towards our wholeness. Thich Nhat Hanh has a beautiful quote where he says, "Suffering is not enough. Life is both dreadful and wonderful. We need to smile to our suffering because we're more than our suffering."
And, and he says that to be practicing meditation or mindfulness is to be in touch with both of these aspects, to be able to integrate. And that kind of recognition that you just spoke to, Diana, helps us to integrate, the
Right.
awareness
Yeah.
and the kind.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful presentation. I enjoyed the whole thing.
Oh, thank you so much. And Carol Ann, that image of how Diana came alive when you saw her as another myself, that try that when you're walking down the beach in Kihei or going to the store or driving down the road. That as you look at people, ordinarily they're just kind of there, just like cardboard, two-dimensional beings. But then we invest ourselves in them through recognizing, oh, another godling. It's like, bless you, dear, for having the courage to get out of bed today. Bless you for being able to just get out there and let whatever light you can find shine today through the tears, through the grief, through the loneliness, through the vulnerability. How profound that can be. And then all of a sudden these beings in the world around you begin to shine, begin to glow. There's this beautiful example, quote from Thomas Merton walking down the street in Louisville, Kentucky at the corner of 4th and Walnut and Vine Street, where his heart just kind of popped open. And he's seeing everyone as embodiments of divinity and goodness and love, and writes this beautiful epiphany where he says, if only everyone could see themselves as they truly are, and see each other in their godliness and their goodliness.
Their nobility, as Peter shared.
There would be no more war. There would be no more cruelty. There would be no more greed or hatred. He said the greatest problem would be that we would just fall down and worship each other. It's just this profound, profound image. Yeah. Amazing.
Welcome, Noelle.
Yeah, thank you for your help, Noelle, and getting us online today and just dancing with all the technical glitches. Just bless you for coming to everyone's rescue here, that we could show up for the...
Well, I'm on my hands and knees noticing how much God you are, because you were such a sweet person through that process. That was really disturbing. So I appreciate how wonderful you were.
May whatever...
Walking the walk.
May it help benefit for others coming after us.
Yeah, in the days to come, may everyone find their way where they need to do their session.
And welcome, James. Thanks for joining us here. Good to have you.
Yay. Any other comments before we wrap up? We've just got a couple more minutes. Just anything else that was significant for this session?
If yourself. Oh.
Peter.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've just put a quote in the chat where it says, "Dost thou reckon thyself only a puny force, then within the universe is folded."
Well, bless you for finding your way here and sharing your light, your wisdom with us, Peter.
All the way from way up. Thank you.
Thank you for all your wisdom.
Yes.
And love to everybody.
Yes. And if anyone would like to stay in touch, put your email in the chat. We send out an email
daily
newsletter, an inspiration, a quote. If you'd like to stay in touch, put your email in the chat and we'll add you to our daily offerings.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So wrapping up here so that whoever comes next can step into the queue. Let's do one last practice together. And this is a really good way to end a day, to end a Zoom session, to end a meeting. And this is, you could call this the practice of dedication. So for this, just envision that you can just gather all the inspiration,
all the goodness that you've experienced, that's been awakened in you, the compassion, the loving kindness, the awareness, the mindfulness that we've opened the doorways into together here.
And breathe that in like waves of light. And as you breathe out, envision that you can invest that light, that you can pour that light into the continuum of your awakening being to light your way forevermore. like a charge in a battery that you'll be able to draw from, a light that you'll carry with you on the journey forevermore that reaches back to this time together. Envision that you can gather that goodness and that light into your heart, and you can pour that light into the heart of everyone who shared this experience with you, or everyone who might even watch this recording in the future, that they might carry some of your light with you, this goodness with you, with them. And then gather this light and just envision pouring this from your heart into the hearts of everyone who you share your heart with. And flowing from their hearts into the hearts of everyone they share their hearts with, and through them to everyone they share their hearts with, in this expanding ripple of goodness and love, of blessings, of inspiration that ripples out from your heart into the larger body of life, flowing from your heart into the hearts of all beings everywhere, that they may carry some of this goodness and this light and this blessings with them.
And may we and all beings awaken to care ever more deeply and wholeheartedly for this beautiful world, this beautiful planet, this beautiful life that we are all sharing, that we're all limbs of the same one body of life. We dedicate to this awakening.
So deep bows, brothers and sisters. Thank you for coming to join us, finding your way through the digital maze to actually show up. A deep greeting to everyone who may see this video in the future, and a hope that, and a prayer that whatever goodness or inspiration you find here, you'll carry that light and that inspiration with you as your journey continues. Thank you all. With that, I think we can end.
Don't forget to stop the recording, Joe.
Okay, I'll do that.